Father, you're here.
Well, let's dig in.
Oh my God. I mean, you.
Well, isn't this great? Is it?
The most dysfunctional family ever.
You are a terrible father. Respectfully.
You're some kind of police assistant.
Consultant.
So where's your desk? He has a desk. Maybe if you work hard enough, you might one day rise to this man's level.
I think it's time that you and I worked on our relationship so that I may have a relationship.
I cannot fix you, Lucifer. I think it's time. Time for me to retire.
I now know exactly what I need to do. I'm going to be God. I should have known we'd smell something fishy.
Aw, dad joke, nice.
Thanks, I'm practicing. If I ever said those 3 words to you, it would be a lie.
Welcome back, everyone. This is going to be my new Lucifer Season 5 Part 2 trailer. They just broke the season in half, so this is the rest of the episodes, and God has just shown up. So we'll break it all down. There's a bunch of Easter eggs. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. Dennis Haysbert showing up as God. He definitely does sound like he has the voice of God, doing all those TV ads. There's a very Chuck Supernatural spin to this too, where he basically says, I think it's time for me to retire. So Lucifer obviously gets the bright idea, I'm going to be the new God. And the trailer is basically hyping up a big battle between him and Michael, with Michael trying to rally support from the other archangels and the rest of heaven so that he can take over. They kind of seeded that storyline in the background during the first half of Season 5, with the idea that they were taking the supernatural route with God, where God himself wasn't around so much, so you have the other angels that are left over, the other archangels like Michael, for instance, that are left to cause trouble, to try and take control of heaven themselves, until God steps in himself. Literal and metaphorical Deus Ex Machina. That's basically what happened at the end of Season 5, Episode 8, where they're basically in this all-out 3-way battle with Amenadiel, Michael, and Lucifer unfurling their wings as he appears. But because this is Lucifer and they treat this like a really dysfunctional family, like the most dysfunctional family in the history of creation, so they actually play it like he's going to be around in a couple of episodes at least, being this sort of weird father figure to Lucifer. Like when you have childhood sports games or music performances or events at your school and an absentee father shows up and it's just really awkward because he's never around and he doesn't really know how to be a father, at least in the way that you want him to be. So they really play up the comedy of him just walking around the police station, just trying to understand what it is that Lucifer's been doing this whole time. Even though the whole idea is that God is supposed to be omnipotent, all-knowing, and so he should know the answers to all these questions, so I do wonder if there's going to be a funny twist behind this. Like, he does seem very inquisitive here, like he's waiting for other people to explain things to him, when really that shouldn't be necessary. Usually you only do that when you want to humor someone, so maybe that's what God is doing in all these scenes when he's walking around asking questions of them. Like, please, explain it to me as if I'm not the most powerful, all-knowing being in all of creation. They also reveal the titles of all the rest of the 8 episodes. There are 8 episodes from the second half of Season 5, so it starts with family dinner, so obviously that's the dinner that they're having at the table here. Very biblical scene that they're having here. Episode 10 is titled Resting Devil Face, which is just a reference to Resting Bitch Face. Episode 11 is titled Bloody Celestial Karaoke Jam. Episode 12 is titled Dan Espinosa, Naked and Afraid. Episode 13 is A Little Harmless Stalking. Episode 14 is Nothing Lasts Forever. Episode 15 is called Is This Really How It's Going to End? And then episode 16, the finale, is called A Chance at a Happy Ending. So Lucifer kind of talks to God about this during the trailer, where he's like, we need to work on our relationship so I can have a chance at having a relationship with Chloe, is who he's speaking of. He didn't say Chloe's name, but he says a relationship. They kind of play with that back and forth during the trailer too when he's talking to Chloe. Like they have that big song and dance number on the football field, which is also where you see them have this big angel standoff. Like they turn it into a metaphorical and a literal battlefield. But they do have a full-blown musical number, it sounds like, during that episode. I think the idea is they wanted to go full-blown musical at some point just because he spends so much time singing during the series. It is kind of weird to see Chloe calling God out like, you are a terrible dad. Respectfully, of course. Respectfully. And obviously the hilarious idea that he thinks of Dan is this really high figure, like maybe if you work hard enough someday, you'll be as good as this man here. And of course, because therapy is so much of a trope of the series, they pull God in for a family therapy session with him. I don't know how close this is going to wind up feeling to the supernatural overarching storyline with the way they weave God into their show, the Chuck character. Because even though in earlier seasons it seemed like he was just completely checking out, like, you know what, I think I'm going to go for a little walkabout. I'm gone. I'm not going to be around for a long time. Or he hinted at the idea that he was going to permanently retire and one of the other archangels or somebody was going to have to replace him as the leader of heaven. He always winds up coming back, so I would be surprised if Dennis Haysbert's God character genuinely does want to actually retire and does fully wind up leaving the universe. Like, they're playing up this whole idea that Lucifer is getting really high on himself with the idea that he could potentially be the new god and completely rewrite the rules of heaven. Like, I'm going to make it way better than it was before. I'm going to do things my way. And on the other side of things, you have Michael, who's being positioned as this antagonist, like somehow he's even worse than Lucifer, who is the devil and is supposed to be the worst person here, but he's more of an anti-hero during the series. So how do you make him feel like a hero? You make Michael feel even more despicable, like somehow him being in charge of heaven, being the new god, would be terrible for everyone. You see the metaphor that they're going for with them wearing all this creepy armor on the battlefield here on this football field. But even if you're not a scholar of the Bible or stories about Lucifer or anything like that, there's this quote from God where he says, "The darker the darkness, the brighter the light." The whole idea of Lucifer is that his name means light bringer, Lucifer, light bringer. So the idea, like they contrast this devil face, like he's judging someone with his devil face as God is watching this happen, like, oh, so this is what it looks like. Without saying it in so many words, God is basically telling him that he is his choice to succeed him, potentially as God. But I think the whole idea is that this is meant to be some grand test, because usually in any series like this, or Supernatural, for instance, where you have God entering the story as an actual character, usually he winds up just messing with people, testing them to see if they'll choose the right path, just to see what will happen. So I would be very surprised if Lucifer himself actually does wind up being God, because the show was renewed for season 6, so they actually do have to escalate things even more than Lucifer potentially battling for the throne of heaven. And I think the whole idea here is that he actually really just wants a life with Chloe, so he doesn't really want to be stuck in hell, but I think he'll also probably find that he doesn't want to be stuck in heaven either. Like, that was kind of the plot at the end of season 4, where he went back to hell because he thought that that was the only way to keep everyone safe, and if he didn't do that, then things were going to erupt in chaos. Then at the beginning of season 5, the show finds another reason for him to come back to planet Earth, because a big trope of the show is it's sort of this police procedural with them having adventures in each episode going to different cases. So presumably the same dynamic would exist during season 6, so I think they're going to continue to tease the idea of him potentially becoming the next god, but they'll have to come up with some reason for him to come back to planet Earth and do more of this day-to-day with Chloe and the other team for the episodes. And it just doesn't feel like he could actually be God and do this day-to-day stuff with the team at the same time. Usually what happens with situations like this in big stories where people are battling for a throne, like you talk about Game of Thrones, people battling for the Iron Throne, is that usually they have to wind up giving up everything that they actually want. And it doesn't feel like Lucifer would do that. Like, he'd basically have to choose between the throne of heaven and Chloe. So it just doesn't feel like the show is heading in that direction. Like, it feels like they want to go for a more optimistic ending. So at some point, they'll have to explain how he does not wind up being God so that he can stay on Earth doing this with Chloe. That's part of the whole twist of his powers and the way they work around Chloe, the way she nullifies his abilities so that he can have a shot at a normal life with her, like actually live as a human with her. But the other big news you guys may have heard about is that they're doing a Justice League Dark HBO series with Constantine and a bunch of the other core Justice League Dark characters from the comics. But the thing is, it's going to be on HBO Max. Lucifer is on Netflix. So I know a lot of people are wondering which version of Constantine they're going to go with. It sounds like they're going to be casting someone new, because you have this whole Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover that sort of binds the entire DC multiverse together. You have Ezra Miller's Flash tying the Justice League Snyder Cut stuff, the movie stuff, to the Arrowverse TV stuff. But I do believe Netflix has been pitching Lucifer Season 6 as the final season of the show, so if Tom Ellis continues to play the character after this, it would be people using him in other productions. The way they explain it during Crisis on Infinite Earths is the universe that this version of Lucifer is from is Earth 666. The only problem that I had with that is the idea that God is supposed to be omnipotent in the multiverse. Like, it's supposed to be, obviously, infinite universes, but only one God, one pantheon of angels. So theoretically, there should only be one Lucifer in the entire multiverse. They even had a Watchmen Easter egg on his Earth too, and I think that was around the time that Watchmen HBO was getting ready to spin up, but I think it was more of a reference to the Watchmen comic book. But everyone let me know in the comments, when they eventually do get up to doing their Justice League Dark HBO series, do you actually want to see Matt Ryan's Constantine come back and cross over? Do you want to see Tom Ellis's Lucifer cross over onto that? The way they're explaining things at Warner Brothers right now is that when it comes to characters showing up in other people's movies, other people's TV shows, they're just kind of leaving it to each production, each director to do what they want to do, or each writer to do what they want to do with the characters. So if they want to bring in Matt Ryan or Tom Ellis's versions of the characters, they can totally do that. The Flash movie with Ezra Miller, with Michael Keaton's version of Batman and Ben Affleck's Batman, is supposed to clarify a little bit about how they're handling the multiverse, at least on the movie side of things. But post all your theories in the comments below. All the Lucifer episodes will hit Netflix May 28th, though, and it sounds like season 6 won't premiere obviously till next year at some point. But I don't know how they're going to break the episodes up. They might do it half and half like they did during season 5. While you wait for everything, click here for my full Falcon and Winter Soldier episode 6 finale video, and click here for that brand new Thor 4 Love and Thunder first look video and learn all about Russell Crowe's character. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys tonight.